Okay, so group 4, please, you have the floor. You can roll now.
Okay, so good morning, everyone. Morning, say we are group 4, and we are here to present on the group assignment. And our question for it was explain identified barriers to communication. And the second question was outline ways to effective communication. Okay, so the first question, explain identified barriers to communication, was um, um, barriers to communication are obstacles that can prevent effective communication. This can include the physical barriers, which are the noise, distance, or a poor internet connection. And one of the second barriers to communication will be language barriers, that's differences in language or use of jargons, and emotional barriers, that is anger, fear, or distrust. Okay, so there's cultural barriers, different which is the differences in values or communication styles. We have the perceptual barriers, which are the differences in how people interpret information. We have the physiological barriers, that's hearing or vision problems. Okay, so that's for the first question. And for the second question, ways to effective communication is one, clarify and conciseness is ensure messages are clear, concise, and easy to understand. Two, active listening. Encourage active listening to ensure messages are received and understood clearly. Three, feedback. Encourage feedback to ensure messages are understood and to identify areas for improvement. Four, choose the right medium. Select the most appropriate communication medium for the message, such as email, phone, or face-to-face, and be open, that is, be willing to share information and listen to others. Practice empathy. Try to understand how the other person feels. Adapt to your audience. Tailor your message to your audience needs and background. So please, that's all for the presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, group 4. Thank you for that. So just going back to some of the points you made there. So communication barrier refers to a barrier, as we know, like police barrier is an obstacle, right, on the route where you have to stop for some checks. But communication barrier here is looking at all the factors that seek to block or be an obstacle to an effective communication. So they rightly put it that they are obstacles that can prevent effective communication, or better still, you could say these are the hindrance of the transfer of information from one person to the other in a smooth manner. Okay. So they listed some of the barriers, or they identified some of them. We had the physical barriers, which includes distance. So for example, as I'm seated here, if I want to pass on an information to what do you call it? Somebody in the United States of America. See, the distance seems to be an obstacle, right? But aside the distance, we can also talk of things like poor handwriting. They gave poor internet connections. In fact, even your voice, the way you appear. Okay, so the physical barriers includes more or less like all the obstacles that you can as in physically experience, if for lack of better statement, we'll put it that way. So, for example, the handwriting, the distance between you and the receiver of the message, even what do you call it? Your voice, the tone of your voice, your appearance, it can affect communication. You see, if a mad person or if someone who is shabbily dressed gives you an instruction, because of how the person looks physically, how the person appears, you don't take them serious, right? Unlike you see somebody who is neatly dressed, who appears neatly and is telling you something. Okay, then the language barriers, we know the differences in language, and ever speaking to a Fanti or a Northerner speaking to an ever. That difference in languages can make it difficult to. If you find yourself in a place where you don't know the language, you tend to struggle because you cannot, decode whatever the person or the sender of that message is saying. Then emotional barriers. Interestingly, your anger, fear, or how you feel emotionally can even impact communication. And I don't know, I think we all experience this one way or the other. Sometimes when you are angry, you are not able to smoothly transfer information to people, right? They raise other points like the cultural barriers, difference in values, and all communication styles. In fact, there are certain cultures, when you make a certain gesture, it has a different meaning, right? So the cultural obstacles are also there to hinder communication smoothly. Then we have the perceptual barriers, how people perceive, things, their personal misconceptions and misbeliefs and myths. This can also affect communication. Okay. And they give us some of the ways to, effectively communicate. So I think the first point was about clarity, right? Clarity and conciseness. So the message needs to be clear, it needs to be concise and easy to understand. Okay. Again, most of the times the receiver should be one that is an active listener, right? And active listening entails a lot. It's not only about opening your ears, but it involves eye contact and other things, right? And then feedback, as we have indicated, this is a major ingredient in effective communication. You have to provide responses. In communications where there are no responses, there is always a problem. Then again, use the right medium. If the telephone will be the best, use it. If the letter writing will be the best, use it. Okay. Imagine you want to tell your friend, or let's say your brother who is sleeping in the next room to wake up, and you decide to write a letter. Does that even sound? Does it sound normal to you? Let me ask professors. Your brother who is sleeping next in the next room, what would be the appropriate means to communicate to him or her that, or sorry, your brother, so him that he should wake up? Would it be through letter writing? Definitely not. So choosing the right medium and mode of communication is very important if you want it to be effective. Okay. Yes, I think Anam is asking. Yes, the slides will be shared in the page for your pay user. And then you also need to be open, right? Openness here means you don't need to be one-sided or one-way thinking person. You need to have diverse views on things. You need to be ready to accept what others are saying and make a good judgment of it. Okay. There are some people, they are not too open. They take a point and that is it. Regardless of what you say, even though it makes a lot of sense, they will not take it. Then be empathetic. Practice empathy. Try to be in the shoes of others. Okay. Try to understand how other people also feel. In a way, it helps communication to be effective. And finally, adapt to your audience, right? You need to structure. Imagine if you are communicating with, excuse me to use this example, somebody who is blind. Okay. You need to adapt to imagine that you were in his or her shoes. How would you be able to communicate effectively? So you try to adapt and do things that will make the communication with such a person more convenient and more effective. Okay, so thank you very much, Group 4. I think we'll go to Group 5 quickly. But if there are questions, professors, you can ask questions on the barriers of communication and then. Okay, let me ask professors this. Does your personal relationship with people affect communication? Can we see that to be a barrier? If your human relation with people is very poor, can it hinder communication? I want to know your view on that. Yes, Prof. Na.
I say thank you. Yes, please, it can.
Okay. Okay. Can you give an example as to how that is possible?
Okay, so your personal relationship with people vary. So maybe if you have this relationship with someone that it's not, maybe you've had a bad interaction with the person, or maybe the person has done something to you, so now you see the person in a different way.
Okay.
You have with the person like won't be that effective.
Yeah, okay. Example is for you being sent by your mother to pass on a message to somebody you are at loggerheads with. You are not too good in personal terms with the person. It will be very difficult to have a smooth communication with such a person. Okay. So professors, let's meet in the second session and then group 5 will deliver. Then we'll round up on the communication. I'll give you some of the summaries and some of the key points you have to take good note of. So let's meet in the final session. If you have questions, please, when we meet, do well to bring them on board. So we answer. Remember, this is a discussion. Share your opinion and your thoughts. Okay. So let's meet in the second session. Bye for now.